basically doing now, he's getting more closer near the ruins of the structure. Now as you see what he's doing, take a very good look at what he's doing. He's looking at the ground because he's noticing that there's metal pieces on this ground. So that's what he came for, and so he's looking around to see what he can pile up. Just getting a very good look at it, at the whole thing. So now you see him walking over it. And if you're wondering why they walk so smoothly over it, that has a lot to do with the uniforms they're wearing. They wear things that are about like 200 pounds, and with the shoes have a very strong adhesive, so it feels like bouncing. But they're not bouncing because of the atmosphere, they're bouncing because of the shoes that they're wearing. And if you look very good at it, you notice how the structure is missing a floor here. You'll notice how with this building, the entire top floor that should be like a ceiling on top of them is not there because that has been wrecked, destroyed. And so only some part is holding up in the back while the front part has been basically gutted. And so this is just more of that. You see these beams here, and then you see these archway beams that I want to keep mentioning it to you. You see more arch beams here and more arch beams here, and that's just to tell you, you know, that it was an administrative building, and people would have been lined up here. They would have been lined up here. They would have been going into another building here, getting their papers or getting prepared for flight. Then they come out of the building. And then if you notice, right at the very far end of this building, it's about maybe a mile off, or half a mile off, is where the Verminia ship is, the one that Apollo 20 went after. And that's to show you what that area used to be. It basically used to be a massive space-age airport. So you're looking at some of the buildings that were left over from it, and this was one of the administrative buildings that they had. So that's more, you know, what you're looking at. If you take a very good look at it, you see how this building, you know, had levels. It was a two-story building with a lot of floors, a lot of inner floors. So basically levels of rooms, bedrooms, office buildings. Basically that's, you know, what it was, basically. And so I just want to keep reiterating that because, you know, a lot of people look at this building and they'll think it's alien, or they'll think, you know, the Germans built it, but it's a lot more complicated than that, and also pretty simple at the same time. And so it's pretty tripped out. This is what I'm talking about. If you look up here, you can see the floorboards up here, and there's floorboards here, and then all of a sudden there's just this big opening right here, and that's because half the floor on top is missing, basically gutted. And a lot of things like that, alabaster walls. But you notice how some of these, you know, wallings here are more darker. They don't really shine that well. And so that's to show you that the Germans had to, like I said, remodel. They had to put some of their raw material on there to kind of hold the building up so that they can use it. And this is Buzz in the middle of it. And, you know, it's a funny thing with Buzz is that right at this point, when he's standing in the middle of it, just looking at it, what was going through his mind is the fact that he just could not believe that this was there. You know, like he's just mesmerized by the fact that somebody built this here before he ever got there. And now he's thinking also, man, I got to go back and tell the people that we're the first ones on this moon and there's nothing here, while he's in the midst of the truth. It's a very eerie moment for him. And if you notice how still he is, he's just standing there, just looking. And so it's just to kind of give you the insight of, you know, what's going on with him. You know, he's just really mesmerized by what he's seeing. And it's get a good look shock at it. You can see how big this building is in terms of width. It's a width building, definitely, but it goes for quite a bit. Like you know, you got these tunnelways that are going all the way, or hallways, if you will. They're actually hallways, and going all the way down and all the way down. You see how long this building was. It was probably close to about a mile long, and it's very, very huge in terms of that. And so one thing about old world buildings is that they emphasize a lot on width and length. They were very astute at that. So that's what you got going on here as well. Also, you'll notice there's more hallways here. You know, more doorways, hallway down over here. There's another section over here. It's just mind-blowing. Top of right here is actually the main ceiling right up here, and it's kind of a box-shaped structure, an oblong box-shaped structure. And once again, Buzz is just more in awe. You notice how slow he's moving now, kind of looking around at it, just kind of in disbelief, just, you know, really blown away by what he saw. You're looking at it right here. This is another hallway point, and where they're at, their module is right over here, and so that's what they're basically looking at. And you notice how this room is designed. It has a very interesting type design. You know, the design is very interesting. Every time I look at it, I can tell with old world structures, they were very into being creative, and so, but not too far off from what we would build a structure as. It's kind of like the same style, same format of how we build our buildings. So it's very powerful stuff, and the more you get a look at it, you know, the more you're really floored by it. Okay, so you'll notice that they're on the outside. They're actually filming in the inside, something on the outside. And this is their module, so one thing you gotta ask yourself is, what's this thing? Right up here. Now that is quite interesting, because it's actually outside. And so it's a little weird. It probably has a lot to do with the entities that are up there. And they did describe that the entities were hovering on top of their heads, so that could have something to do with that. Very, very weird indeed. And that's probably why he's filming the module right now, because he's getting worried. Okay, this is what I was talking about in terms of picking up metal fragments and circuits. Now, if you notice what he's doing, if you take a very good look at what he's doing, that's exactly what he's doing. He's collecting up circuits, he's collecting up wires, and he's collecting up metal pieces. And he's basically piling them up so that they can basically take them out of there. And that's what Mr. Buzz right here is doing. He is basically trying to pile them all up together. And quite interesting. And the reason why it's dark there is because there's just not enough light. And this is a computer composite of what the structure looks like. If you take a very good look at it, it's very, very big. And you can see how it's just a big, massive, long, two-story administrative building. And just very, very huge. And quite interesting indeed. And that's just to give you a very good look at what you're looking at. And there's just so much about this, you know. This is a piece of the second floor ceiling. It's broken off there. You'll notice some things on top of it. It's kind of circular, like blocks and stones on top of right here. That could have more of a function than we think. We could be looking at a piece of a broken off machine. And it's just amazing, you know. Very sad when you look at it too, because, you know, you realize certain things, and, you know, you realize what we lost due to sin, due to rebellion against God. We cost ourselves quite a bit. And you know, the earth is temporary. Even the planets are. None of this stuff is going to last. You're not going to see this stuff in eternity. And believe me, you don't really want to. The place is haunting, by the way. If you have the astronauts who talked about it, who covertly talked about it, spoke about the feeling of being haunted, you know, the feeling of something was on their back or on their shoulders, looking at the apparitions of the fallen angels, being haunted by them. So the moon is very much haunted. So right now we're going to show you a female body that was found on the moon. And this came from Apollo 20, which was a very covert mission. And it was done between Americans and Russian astronauts. And this mission was the last known mission to the moon in terms of the American involvement of it. And this is the body that you're looking at right here. And You'll notice some things about the body is that you'll notice these tubes that are connected to her eyes and her mouth and to the center point of her head. These tubes are actually flying devices, and they are devices that are attached to the neurons of her mind, basically. They had a technology back then, a long time ago, where they were able to pilot things almost seemingly using their mind, but they were using technology that was attached to their mind to send out basically a particle ray to operate computers that would lift the ship into the air. And so basically that's what you're looking at are piloting devices that are attached to her face. And if you get a really good look at her, you'll notice her skin is very much in place. The people in the ancient world lived for a long, long time. That means that their skin texture was far more powerful than ours, meaning they didn't decay as quick as us. As they lived for thousands of years, it would also take thousands of years for them to decay. And so that's why her skin is still intact. Also, the fact that where she was, it was highly cold. She actually was frozen to death. So when you add that in there, it pretty much you can see why her skin is very much attached. And there's other things you'll notice about her. If you notice, the rims around her hair are quite curly, and you'll notice some of that there, and you'll notice some in the back shot. Basically, those are braids, and she had braided hair. And if you take a pretty good look at her, you'll notice that her facial features resemble someone of quite great beauty. She was known as a very beautiful woman in her time. She is also the pilot of this ship, and her body was the only one that was intact at the time when they found the other bodies. They found other bodies next to her, but they were in pieces. She was the only one that was intact. We got a very good look now at this implement right here. We can see a piece of this technology which is attached to the center of her head, and you can see how the tubes are all attached to the eyes and then attached all the way to the bottom. So what you're kind of wondering is that what she's doing is, let's say when she's piloting the ship, she's giving commands with her mouth, and those commands with her mouth are then being fed into the tubes into her brain. And what it is that there is a machine that is attached or can send a signal from that machine all the way into this device in her head, which would then send the commands to the ship, sort of like being on a cell phone and talking on that cell phone and powering the whole entire ship through it. Very advanced communicative technology. So advanced it makes a person look like they're psychic almost, but there's just technology. And that's a very good look at the device here and here. And this is just mind-blowing technology, just very mind-blowing. You got to really wrap your head around it. You know, here are more of the braids that are pretty much frozen. Her whole entire hair was frozen in, and you just really got to wrap your head around it. The people in the old world in the time of Noah lived in an advanced state of technology, and so the way they looked, the way things looked, are not what you would ever saw them as. There has been a lot of science fiction films, but the truth is so much of them are disinformation that they never really showed you the raw, real appearance, they knowing of what the old world used to look like. And if you notice how her mouth is in an expression of fear or kind of an expression of panic, it's because she was frozen to death. So apparently she was basically in a state of terror at the time she died. This is one of the astronauts trying to find a way to remove the tubes off of her face without damaging her face. He's trying to find a way in there. I want you to take a very good look at this note because it's very